This Tuesday, the London-based Cuba Solidarity campaign had their annual candlelit vigil in protest against the blockade of Cuba and the continued imprisonment in America of 5 Cuban intelligence agents. The protest was held outside the US Embassy in Grosvenor Square, London. The Cuban prisoners, known as the Miami Five or Los Cincos, were jailed in 1998 for crimes including conspiracy to commit espionage and murder. However, the convictions have consistently been challenged by many Cubans, human rights groups, MPs, trade unions and supporters as being unsafe, unjust and politically motivated.
The Cuba Solidarity campaign has been campaigning for many years now, probably 11 of 12 years on this case, which has been going on now for over 14 years. The 5 men have been imprisoned for 14 years. One of those men, Rene Gonzalez, is now out on parole, and we'll hear a bit more about that later on. But tonight is all about justice for those 5 heroes: Gerardo Hernandez, Ramon Labanino, Antonio Guerrero, Fernando Gonzalez, Rene Gonzalez. 5 brave Cuban men who did what we would all hope we would all do: defend our country, our own country people against bombs and attacks from another country. And that is all they were doing, defending their country. Billions and millions of people know about this case. But in the United States itself, there is essentially a media blackout. And it can only be solved in the United States. Only the United States government and President Obama himself can take the decision to free these 5 men. But our job is to keep raising the case, raising the injustice amongst our members of Parliament, trade unionists, Amnesty International, which we've done in Great Britain to success, to ensure that their case is heard. The 5 are freed and can rejoin their loved ones in Cuba.
Good evening, comrades. Delighted to see you all here. I bring you solidarity greetings from the Southern and Eastern Region TUC and from its Women's Rights Committee. We honour the Cuban Revolution that overthrew the notorious dictator Batista on the 1st of January 1959. And from that day, for the next 50 years, there have been acts of violence against the Cuban people by terrorist organisations, not politicians, not by freedom fighters, but by known terrorists based in the United States, and indeed by the United States itself. Remember the Bay of Pigs invasion, 1961. Remember the bombing of a Cuban airliner in 1976 that killed 73 people. Remember the bombings of hotels in Havana in 1997, in which an Italian citizen was also killed. Remember the numerous failed assassination attempts on Fidel Castro. In 2001, a report by Cuba's permanent mission to the United States, the Cuban government catalogued 3,478 deaths as a result of terrorism against the Cuban people. The Miami Five were arrested on 12th of September 1998, 14 long years ago. In December 2001, a shamefully unfair trial convicted the 5, and those names have already been mentioned, but a disgraceful show of contempt for people by the USA. Those unnecessary arrests in 1998, the subsequent shambles of a trial and repeated failures of justice did not just wrongly imprison the 5 men. It ruptured families, it devastated mothers, it severed husbands from wives, and I want to ask you to pay particular tribute to Olga, Adriana, Rosa and Elizabeth.
We're fully committed to support the campaign for the release of the Miami Five. More than 50 years of the blockade by the United States has not broken the determination of the Cuban people to continue with their socialist revolution. I doubt whether there's many politicians in the United States who really believe that another 50 years will break the Cubans either. Punishing Cuba has become a habit of US governments, and we must continue our campaign to break that addiction. The Miami Five are part of that addiction. They've been punished for defending their country from terrorism. They are 5 heroes of the really free world.
I am one of the members of Parliament who are involved in the all-party Cuba group. We had the opportunity to visit Cuba last year and see firsthand the impact of the 50-year blockade on the people of Cuba. We saw directly the wonderful work that was being done in health and in education, but we also heard of the difficulties that many of the Cuban people were facing because of the blockade, and also how we lose out from many of the developments that are taking place in Cuba because they cannot properly be shared with the rest of the world. And I say this myself as a wife and as a mother. Think of all that the families of the 5 have missed during that time, and think of what the 5 themselves have been denied during that time. And last night in the House of Commons we had an amazing meeting, an incredible response to Aleida's speech. And we also heard from other members of Parliament about their involvement over the years in the Cuban cause. And at every stage it was clear that we want to do what we can to right this injustice. And that's why we have tabled an early day motion in the House of Commons. And I say to you, comrades, I do not routinely sign early day motions. It's not something I do lightly, because I do believe that when you take a stance on something, it should be for the correct things, it should be a cause that you believe in, and it should make an impact, and it should mean something. But I have chosen to support this early day motion because I want to send a signal to my colleagues, to my comrades, to people across the political parties in the House of Commons that it's time for MPs to renew their efforts to speak up and to speak out on justice for the Miami 5. Well, I've been involved in issues around Cuba for many years. I've been an elected representative now since 1999 when I first went to the Scottish Parliament, and 2010 in the UK Parliament. But I first got involved through the trade union movement. I was a member of the Transport and General Workers Union, who of course took a great interest in the whole Cuban question, the whole issue of the blockade and so on. And when I first became an elected politician, I thought it was only right that I took up the various causes at that time.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the damage that it's done? Because I know in your speech you talked a little bit about the damage not just on the Cuban people that you'd observed there, but also the damage that it's done in terms of the impact it's had on the UK.
Well, when I was in Cuba, I saw some of the fantastic work that's being done in education, particularly for young people with special needs, but also in the health service. And we also met with some academics and people who were involved in medical research. And one example was that there are people there who have developed some work around treatment for people who are diabetic who have ulcers. And their research isn't able to be shared, and their product isn't able to be shared with the wider world because of various international regulations. That seems to me to be wrong. So not only are the Cuban people suffering because of the trade embargo, not able to get foodstuffs and other things that they need in, but we're also not able to get access to the best minds, the research and all the work that's been done by Cubans themselves.
There are 3 major failings. The first one is that when they were detained, they were not given access to documents or to their attorneys. So in effect, the defense was flawed from the onset. The second thing it says is that to try them by jury in a place like Miami, where there's widespread hatred towards the Cuban government, means that no jury could have conducted a fair trial. And of course, possibly the most shocking part of this case is how the American government is dishing out collective punishment. The wives, the families are not being allowed to go and visit them in jail.
Here we are, standing outside the embassy of the land of the free and the home of the brave. No, don't laugh too much. They sing it with pride. But there's nothing brave about trying to intimidate a small island of 11 million people. There's nothing to be proud of. And we need to let this American crowd, these cowboys from the West, understand that they're not just dealing with the 11 million Cuban people, but they're dealing with the whole of the working class movement throughout the world. We will not allow you to bully and intimidate our Cuban comrades. Despite the power and their wealth, they can never understand that the cause of solidarity flows through our very veins. That's why that old adage of the workers united will never be defeated is as apt today as it's ever been. And we need to make certain that that spirit continues the fight for our Cuban brothers.
All of us here know why the 5 are still imprisoned in the USA, and history will know why the 5 are still imprisoned in the USA. It's not about crime, it's about Cuba. And this is a 14-year-old stain that won't be washed away and won't be brushed under the carpet. But we have a simple and clear message. First of all, to the 5, in that we will never, ever walk away from you. And we have a simple and clear message to Mr. Obama. Remember your slogan when you came into power on a wave of positive feelings, and the slogan was, "Yes, we can." Well, Mr. Obama, yes, you can. You can free the 5. You can send them home.
Cuba ranks 3rd in the world in number of women MPs. It has 45%. And I think that's something that doesn't get spoken about. And another small but important victory, I had the pleasure this year of seeing the achievements of 2 Cuban Paralympic athletes winning gold and silver. This is an unjust treatment of the Miami 5 is a human rights violation. It's a family rights violation. It's an injustice that can end. It's an injustice we can all play our part in ending. Please continue to support the campaign, and thank you so much for being here.
I think the most successful thing has been that there isn't silence anymore, because people are speaking out and people are finding out what's going on. But we have not yet, the Miami 5 is not released. One of them has been released, but he's still not free and not able to meet again with his family. The blockade still exists. There have been some changes within the United States, very, very minor ones under Barack Obama, but we are very, very fearful in the future, depending on the presidential election. We obviously want big change, but we are also worried about small changes in the wrong direction as well. So I think we have had some successes, but we need a great deal more, and this campaign therefore has to continue.
She has moved many, many people on this particular visit, and it is a real privilege that she's with us here tonight to speak primarily about this campaign for justice for the Miami 5. Please give an extremely warm welcome to Aleida Guevara.
Muy buenas noches a todos y a todas.
Good evening, everybody.
Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí hoy.
Thank you for coming here tonight.
Y en un país bloqueado y agredido por Estados Unidos.
I was born in a country blockaded and subject to aggression by the United States.
Pero también es cierto que nací en un país libre y soberano.
But it's also true that I was born in a free and sovereign country.
No doblega su cabeza nunca más ante nadie.
A country that will never bow its head to anyone again.
Por eso es muy hermoso poder estar aquí hoy con ustedes.
That's why it's very good to be able to be with you here today.
Lucho ahora también por 5 mujeres extraordinarias.
I'm also struggling now for 5 extraordinary women.
Compañeras de sus hombres.
Comrades of their menfolk.
Realmente historias de amor que uno quisiera poder vivir.
Histories of love that one would want to live.
Y lucho precisamente para que ese amor no desfallezca y ellas puedan disfrutar de la vida junto al hombre que han amado siempre.
And quite frankly, I struggle so that they can have that love next to the men that they've always loved.
¿Hasta cuándo el gobierno de Estados Unidos va a mantener esta injusticia?
Until when is the government of the United States going to maintain this injustice?
Pero todavía más importante,
But still more important,
¿hasta cuándo nosotros vamos a tolerar esa injusticia?
until when are we going to tolerate this injustice?
Muchas gracias por esa solidaridad.
Thank you for your solidarity.
Muchas gracias por su resistencia.
Thank you for your resistance.
Pero todavía tenemos que hacer más.
But we still have to do more.
Tenemos que multiplicar nuestras fuerzas.
We need to multiply our force.
Decía José Martí,
José Martí stated,
los malos triunfan cuando los buenos somos indolentes.
the bad ones triumph when the good ones sleep.
Rompamos el bloqueo de silencio que han impuesto sobre esta verdad.
Let's break the blockade of silence imposed on this truth.
Métale a la marcha, métale al tambor, métale que traigo un pueblo en mi voz. Métale a la marcha, métale al tambor, métale que viene la revolución. Muchas gracias.
To the President of the United States,
escribir mucho a todas las organizaciones humanitarias y de solidaridad, sobre todo que están dentro de Estados Unidos. Porque el problema más grave que tenemos es que el pueblo de Estados Unidos no conoce estas cosas.